Welcome to the Ancient Coin Podcast with Aaron Berk, a show about ancient coins from the viewpoint of a seasoned professional with nearly 30 years' experience. Here's Aaron Berk and Mike Nodelman on the Ancient Coin Podcast.
And the sound of the tone mean once again it is time for another episode of the Ancient Coin Podcast with Aaron Berk. I'm Mike Nodelman.
I'm Aaron Berk.
And, man, do we have a show for you tonight. So tonight on the Ancient Coin Podcast, Aaron talks about his trip to the New York International Show. We'll discuss some sales, a couple of auctions, and we even have multiple Doofus purchases tonight. I guess we're making up for lost time. And we'll add yet another pearl of wisdom to our necklace of knowledge. So Aaron, tell us about your trip.
It was really exciting and exhausting all at the same time. It's a pretty long week. So I flew out there Monday the 9th. And basically from the time I get to the hotel to the time I leave, it's go, 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 go. So the auctions were... Heritage was Monday night, Triton was Tuesday and Wednesday, New York sale was Tuesday and Wednesday night, and then Stacks had their sales all the way through till Saturday. And then the show setup was Thursday, and then the show was Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So by the time you get to the show, you're pretty petered out because, you're in the auctions for sometimes, 8 to 10 hours a day. So it's a lot of stimuli, even though you're just sitting there, but you're dealing with bids and clients and all the other stuff. But it was really great to have a full house, as they say. It was the first time in 3 years that everybody got together. Even though they had the New York International last year, a lot of Europeans weren't able to come over. And so everybody was there. And so that was cool to see everybody. And I would say that the state of the market is very strong still, and we can talk a little bit about that with some of the auctions. But the show itself was also very active, very busy, and I didn't talk to one dealer that didn't say they had a fantastic show.
Well, that's cool. So I think the biggest thing of note is the fact that no COVID restrictions at all. So it was business as usual for the first time in a couple of years, and that's got to be a welcome sight.
Yeah, it was for sure. I mean, the auctions weren't going to be affected one way or the other because everybody was online last year. Mm-hmm. So whether you're online or bidding an auction or over the phone, it's still the same.
Sure.
So that really didn't change too much. But let's just get into, I'll talk about the New York auctions a little bit, but first I want to just kind of mention one auction that's coming up that a lot of you may not have ever heard of. It's Mason Palumbo. They are running their auction of Zurich. It's going to be their 21st auction, and it's going to be January 28th. And they only have about 90 ancient coins, but they're all pretty high quality coins. So Mike, if you bring that page up, if you haven't already.
Oh yeah, we're there.
And mostly high-end Greek coins. Now, I would say the starting prices in a lot of these cases are pretty strong. So I wouldn't say that they're necessarily coins that you maybe want to bid on because they're really strong.
Well, most of them are starting 4 figures. I mean, that is strong.
Yeah, like lot 10, for instance, starting out at 80,000 Swiss francs. I don't know if that's worth that retail. I mean, I would say it's worth. I bought coins like that for $25,000 and $30,000. So I think starting out at 80,000. Now I don't know if they're actually starting them there. I assume they are. I don't think they're starting at a percentage of that, but they are beautiful coins to look at, if anything else. But there's a couple coins that are, seem reasonably started. But this is obviously an important collection of somebody who had some very strong prices that they paid for them. And so the auction house obviously has to start them high. So they may not get a lot of action on these coins, but it's still noted. There isn't a lot of auctions going on. And so there's some really interesting coins in here. So I just wanted to bring it up just because it's a company probably a lot of people haven't heard of. But again, you have to take, when you look at some of these prices, that's why auction houses try to start with lower estimates to get people interested. When I look at these starting prices, it doesn't make me want to bid necessarily.
Do you think that is going to hinder the final bids?
Possibly. It's only most of the sale is world, and so more modern coins. I would say, um, people will either pay the starting price or a little bit more. I saw that in the Triton auction, is that coins that were really heavily overestimated, in my opinion, they brought around estimate. And pieces that were starting with a more reasonable estimate, they went at double estimate. So, sometimes, estimating something really high or close to retail or over retail is only going to make it so that you sell it around that estimate price. It doesn't mean you're going to get double or triple estimate. And most auctioneers don't want to take a risk in having just one bid on a coin. They'd prefer to have action, and so that it builds and builds and builds and hopefully brings a record price. So in this situation, you may not get as many clients targeting these coins because the estimates are high.
Yeah, I mean, that would be my thought, is that a bigger pool with more buyers should give you better results, but that's not always necessarily true either.
Yeah, I mean, I would say I'd look at this and say, well, there are a couple of the coins, and then you got to factor in they're charging 22.5% buyer's fees too. So you got to factor that in as well. So you just have to kind of look at it and say, well, okay, if this coin is worth $10,000 or this coin is worth $5,000 or $1,000, and that's what I think it is worth retail, then that's all I'm bidding, and that's that. And you either go for that price or it'll go stronger. Who knows? But I just don't think it's going to draw the interest where it gets a lot of competition.
Makes perfect sense.
So anyway, there's not a whole lot going on auction wise, so that's why I kind of just brought that one up because I thought it was interesting. Now, going back to the New York auctions, and I'm going to talk about really expensive coins because I want to talk about a couple of the stars. The first one was the Diocletian Medallion, which we talked about in the last show, and that is lot number 830 in the Triton auction.
Yeah.
And I was there for that. What was really interesting is that the room wasn't completely full, and a lot of people came in just for this one lot because they wanted to see it go off. So,
well, you have to say this coin is spectacular, right? It's everything you could want in a coin.
It is. And it was two phone bidders going at it. There was one dealer on the floor that was bidding on it, maybe a second one at the beginning, and then once it hit $1 million, it was just the two phone bidders going at it through C&G's staff. So nobody knows who bought the piece because it went to a phone bidder, and it brought 1.9 million hammer plus the 22.5% on top of that. So the only thing that would worry me if I was bidding on this at that level is the fact that it doesn't have a pedigree. I would have, if I'm spending $2 million plus, I would prefer to have something that had an older pedigree, not to have a piece that has no pedigree whatsoever.
A little dicey.
It just, it may never be a problem, but I'm pretty sure that's why one of the reasons why they got it encapsulated also is to kind of make people feel a little bit more secure about it.
Sure.
It was a fantastic piece. If it had, say, a pre-1970 pedigree, maybe it goes for $5 million. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
So that the lack of pedigree could have kept the price down too.
As if $2 million is keeping the price down.
Well, I mean, if you compare it to U.S. coins, it's still, if this is one of the best ancient coins you can get, for the type of coin that it is, $2 million is nothing in comparison to what U.S. coins bring, high-end U.S. So, I mean, the highest price ever paid was the gold Aydemar for $4.3 million, and the highest U.S. coin was the 1933 double eagle that brought 18 million.
Right. Recently.
So recently, last summer.
Right.
So again, it's apples and oranges, and also it's supply and demand, just like anything else. So
Well, two totally different markets too.
Completely. I talked to a couple of Mike Prince in our office, and who was down at Fun, and he felt that a lot of the dealers all had good shows, but they said that on the high end material that they were kind of sitting on their hands a little bit and a little bit worried about the market. And in ancients, I don't feel like that's the case at all. I feel like it's a much stronger market right now. So just, from what he said and what I felt, I just felt it was completely different. The other coin that was worth mentioning was the Labienus that was in the New York sale.
Lot 145.
Lot 145. Labienus is a very interesting guy. He actually was a high military official and very good friends with Julius Caesar, and was very instrumental in Gaul while Caesar was ruling. When the Civil War started against Pompey, Labienus kind of jumped and went to Pompey's side, which was kind of deserting Caesar. And eventually Caesar or Pompey was killed, and Labienus was killed at a latter battle. I think the Battle of Monday is what it's called, and there's some reading about that Labienus's head was brought to Julius Caesar, but then Caesar went and got his body and actually gave him proper burial. So obviously, even though he went against him, he had obviously some friendship and feelings towards Labienus. So this coin brought 775,000 hammer. The last one, I believe, brought about 600,000. So there have been fakes of these in the market. This one's a real one. And so, that was a strong price for it. Probably the strongest price thus far for one of these. If you go back about 25 years, these would sell for between 50 and 100,000. So they really have gone up quite a bit. But it is a rare bird. And obviously the horse on the reverse symbolizing Labienus's cavalry experience.
Yeah, it has has a quiver.
Right. And and obviously this went to a collector as well. There was obviously support and competition. And so just based on these two coins alone, at the high end level, you see that there's still a lot of support and strength for high end ancient coins. And even in the mid-range and lower end ancient coins, I still saw a lot of interest, and I saw coins that still had very strong showings. I couldn't buy much for stock in any of these sales, not that I can always, but it was very difficult to buy anything for stock, and with the commissions and fighting against the rest of the market. So overall, I think all the sales were very strong. Stacks also had a very strong sale.
The prices tended towards retail.
Way over retail in a lot of cases. So, I was watching the Stacks auction today, and it was ridiculously strong. So, but with any of these types of weeks of auctions, there always seems to be a lot of new Doofus purchases that can be stated as such. And
we have a couple.
I have a couple, actually. And one is probably one of the greatest ones I've ever seen. It's definitely up there as one of the greatest. This was, I saw this on Facebook through a friend of ours, customer, and also collector Josh Zachman, if you don't mind me mentioning you. He brought this up in one of the discussions. And this was if you're on it, it was the Heritage lot lot 33032.
Yep.
It's an Alexander the Great Dram. You can see it was in their electronic auction, like just after the New York International. So a couple days later, they started it out at $1. And it closed at 18,000 with the hammer. $18,000 for an Alexander the Great Dram. I don't care how nice it is. It is the most ridiculous price ever. It's not even a tetragram. It's a nice coin, but okay, maybe you might ask $2,500, and that would still be stupid. So for a coin like this was all based on the star designation.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact is that in the description, it says NGC stated that it was tied for the highest grade, which means somebody thinks this is the finest known. And you can't say that just because NGC says that it's the highest, one of the highest ranked for one that they've seen. But if 90% of the market isn't slabbed, or even if you say it's 70%, you can't say that's the finest known.
So let me ask a rookie question on this then.
Yeah.
So is this coin just not one of the better ones out there, and NGC graded it choice MS star 5 out of 5, 5 out of 5, right? Or is this like the Silver Eagles where they're all 68, 9, or 70? I mean, they're all like that, and it just doesn't it doesn't add any value to be really nice.
It's a fantastic coin. It really is. It's a fantastic coin, but it's never an Alexander the Dram. I mean, it's not even from a good mint like Egypt. It's from Miletus. It's a common mint. It's lifetime. I guess that's cool. But this was all bought primarily for the star and
the fact that it says in the description that it's tied for the finest.
Right. And so somebody said, well, I want the finest known, and I'm collecting the finest known. And so I'm buying the plastic here. The coin is fantastic, but the overpayment for the star, NGC and Heritage, they're happy. The consignor, they're happy. They're shaking their head and they're laughing, but they're happy.
And based on my experience with collectors like this, the collector's happy too, because regardless, there's never going to be one that grades better.
Yeah, but
I know, is that relevant? I don't think so, but I'm just saying.
Well, you need to have two people fight over it, or three people fight over it again for it ever to reach that price. And
Sure.
So just like the Athens tetragram that years ago went for 50,000 that I brought up before, when it resold, it sold for half. And so, this coin, when it goes up for auction again,
maybe worse.
It may only bring $5,000. Maybe and that's being overly generous.
So it's under a third.
So
that's worse.
I can tell you that I had a client buy a couple of coins from us last year, a guy in Asia, and one of the coins was really a specialty coin. And then he turned around and put them in Heritage, and Heritage isn't a good place for specialty coins. They are for ancients. These coins weren't going to get a high designation. And I've said this before, if you don't have the star 5555, you're not going to get these ridiculous runaway prices. And so any kind of negative comments on the slab or low ranking isn't going to get you a strong price. And it just goes to show that these collectors who are paying these ridiculous prices don't know a thing about ancient coins and don't care. They're buying them for investment. That's all they're buying them for. Because if they understood ancient coins, they wouldn't pay a price like that for this coin.
Well, you know what else it says to me is that it says that most of the ones that you see that are slabbed going forward are going to be 5555. Because if you get a grade that's much lower than that, they're just going to crack it out. You're better off with it not being in a slab.
Well, and I know dealers that work with telemarketers, and they are at a point now where they're basically telling NGC, they say they give them 200 coins to slab, and they say to them, only slab the ones you're not going to put negative comments on, and just give me those back raw. because I can't do anything with those. So,
well, they'd rather
so
not pay for you to beat up their coin in a holder that they're not going to be able to sell it in.
They can't sell it as easily or make any money off of it. So what they're doing is they're taking the best coins, making a lot of money off of the high grades, and then they're dumping all the low end material, or it's not even low end coins that that NGC would have said negative things about, and they're dumping those at their cost. And so it just goes to show that it has nothing to do with numismatics anymore. It just only has to do with those designations. So,
and if you've been paying attention to the Doofus purchases, at least thus far in our series, I will say that the repeating thread over and over and over again is people who have bought plastic.
It is, unfortunately. And I tell my clients, like if they say there were some coins that were coming up in this past year that had stars and designations, and they say, I want to bid on this. And I'd say, well, just so you know, I'm going to give you a bid of where it should be if it was raw, because I don't want you to get killed and overpay for a coin. But you're going to be competing against people who are only buying them based on the stars designations. And so there's that. And so I was going to say about this Asian customer that bought a couple coins from us. He ended up taking a bath because they didn't get high grades on the slabs. Well, they weren't good coins. Those weren't the right types of coins to put in auction through Heritage, because Heritage wants the star designations. That's what they want. That's where people are going to pay stupid money. Anything that's got a lower designation, they don't do well with them. So doesn't mean that they can't.
It's just not their market.
No, it's not their market. Not their market. So the other one.
But wait, there's more, right?
There's one more.
Yeah.
And I was sitting in the auction while this went off, and this is it was in the Triton sale, and it's a Severus Alexander Aureus. It's a very nice coin, but guess what? Most Severus Alexander coins come mint state. They just do. And Severus Alexander is like the Gerald Ford of Roman Aurii. It's like nobody wants this guy. I do not want to buy a Severus Alexander as a dealer. If it's offered to me, I pass on it unless it's dirt cheap. And the estimate at 10,000 was about as high retail as I would expect to pay for one of these. When I sell these mint state in my catalog, we sell them between, I don't know, $6,500 and $8,500. Maybe we might try a little higher, but I doubt it. But it got choice mint state 5555. Mm-hmm. So C&G played the slab game, which I don't blame them, because here they got $25,000 hammer for the coin plus 22.5%. That's a ridiculous price for this coin. My father and I were sitting at the table in the auction room when this coin went off, both shaking our heads and saying moron under our breath. And right after that, one of the top buyers in the world texted me and said, WTF. So everybody was thinking the same thing. So didn't have a clue of what they were buying and didn't care.
Yeah, all they saw was nice looking ancient coin. And probably
high designation.
And a high
didn't
estimate.
Even have a star, but I can tell you, go through coin archives, go through. I mean, it's a nice coin. But guess what? These come nice. They come nice. Right. You could even say, oh, it's one of the better ones I've seen. But if they're all, if a large majority of them all come mint state, it's like buying a Gorion III Aureus. They all come nice. When you see an ugly one, when you see a worn one, you're surprised. And same thing with this guy. And again, Gorion III and Severus Alexander, they're both like Ford 1 and Ford 2, It's like nobody wants these guys. So in any case, I mean, what these Aurii are great for, because they're not 12 Caesar, one of the 12 Caesars, it's a great way to buy a Roman Aureus cheap. So, but at 25,000, that's not cheap. And with the juice,
that's not buying it cheap.
No, and with the juice, you're at $30,000. I mean, you could get a fantastic Aureus of one of the 12 Caesars for that, So why would you buy a Severus Alexander?
Yeah, if this had just been a bit better emperor, it would be a much
And
better coin.
and it has no pedigree. Doesn't even have a pedigree. You can't even say, well, it has a pre-1970, so somebody paid for the pedigree. Doesn't even have the pedigree. Oh my God. So in any case, those are my two doofuses. There's other ones. There was lots of them. There was Republican coins that people paid way too much money for, and for the same reasons. And I would love it if some of these, these people are never going to listen to my show, or our show, but I'd love them to get on some of the Facebook groups and watch the people who are real experienced in collecting ancient coins talk about these purchases. Not just me, it's the whole numismatic world. Anybody who knows anything about ancient coins is talking about these people like, what the hell?
Yes.
So it's not just me, trust me. And I wish that these people would get on some of these forums and start learning about ancient coins instead of, sucking up the plastic juice. So,
well, I mean, it's good for sales, but that's about it.
It is.
It's not really good for the hobby.
No, it's not good for the hobby, and I think that's my issue.
But at that level, is it a hobby?
No, I don't think this person's buying it as a hobby, at all. I think they're buying it for an investment.
So, I mean,
and I've always said, don't buy ancient coins as an investment. So that's the cardinal rule. You don't buy them for investment. You hope that they go up in price over time because you bought properly, not because you outbid everybody on the floor.
Well, you definitely don't buy coins for investment. They're just a bad investment.
No, I mean, if you work with a dealer and you buy properly and you don't get screwed, you're going to do okay in the end. I mean, I have clients that I built, because Greek is very strong right now, that I sold them Greek coins, 10 years ago, and they're laughing and all happy because the prices have gone through the roof. And so, but I sold them coins at reasonable prices, or what the market was at the time. And now the market has exceeded those prices. So they're happy.
Sure.
So if you're going to get gouged,
if the market had gone the other direction, they wouldn't have been hurt as badly. That's the wisdom in doing it.
Correct. Yeah. If they end up breaking even, just means that the market came down.
Right.
That's all, but they didn't lose their tail. Like, somebody's going to lose their tail on this coin.
Well, there's a couple of them.
And on the Alexander. And on the Alexander, the
right.
Great
It's like both of those
they're going to lose their tail. Maybe they don't care. Maybe they'll write it off. Maybe that's their point.
Maybe that is their point.
Maybe they need to write stuff off. I don't know.
Wow. They need to write stuff off. I mean, you can just hand me a big stack of it. I'll light it on fire and you can claim it as an insurance loss.
I know. So anyway, so that takes us to our educational section. I thought it would be fun to talk about Roman cast bronzes. So Mike, if you want to head on over to that section.
I gotcha.
And a lot of people in the business, we call them hockey pucks.
Well, I mean, that's not really lying, is it?
No. So so we all know that most ancient coins are struck, right? And so when we say that a coin's been cast, it's generally fake, because all ancient coins are generally struck. But in this period, it's one of the very few cultures. So this is in the Roman Republic, early Italian, way before the Roman Empire. They were actually making cast bronzes. And you can see on the first slide how big that coin is, just based on the fingers.
Yeah, you see, the funny thing is you called that a hockey puck, and then I think to my experience on the U.S. side, and we refer to the 5-ounce silver, coins from you as a hockey puck. They're roughly the same size.
Right. And the weights didn't really need to be so accurate on these, but they are pretty close. But it was more just about getting the weight of the copper or bronze properly. And but they started out, if you go to slide 2, you'll see this is very early on. This is the ossignatum, which are basically bricks. and they're very rare. They don't come up very often. They're probably 6 inches long, something like that. And they're thick and they're heavy, very, very heavy. The one with the 2 birds and the stars, that one, I think brought 130,000 Swiss francs back in like 2013 or 2012. So very rare.
Now, are these one-sided or two?
They're 2-sided.
Okay.
So, like on the one on the bottom, you'll see it has a caduceus on one side and it has a fork on the other, which is probably what this one on the left has as well. Mm-hmm. So the one with the roosters, that's the other side next to it.
Sure. But I noticed that the one was by itself, and it's got a trident.
Yeah, I just didn't have.
There's a trident.
I found that on. I found that on online. So they only showed the one side.
Sure.
So, and you'll get fragments of these sometimes because they would actually break them to make change, and so you actually will get pieces of these that you'll see in the market occasionally. But to get one intact, whole, they're very rare. And, one of the Italian restrictions that passed here in the United States in 2000 said that we couldn't bring in this type of material into the country without an older pedigree. So because this is the time of Italy when everything stayed within the country, it was there wasn't a lot of movement of the metal or the coinage moving around because this is way before the Roman Empire. This is way before Julius Caesar and everybody else. So, if you go to the next slide, you can see they start out with these really kind of clumps of bronze. They're called Osrude because they're rude. Rude. So, but yeah, these were actually coins. These were actually considered coins, and they traded these. So it's really just about the weight of the metal, more or less.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's hard to believe that this would be a desirable piece. They look like rocks.
Well, this is really where you're collecting the early monetary system of the Roman Empire, or of Italy, because before the Roman Empire.
Yeah, I was going to say, this is before the Greeks too, isn't it?
So, well, no, this is around Greek period. So these were made starting in about 8th century BC and all the way down to probably the 6th or 5th century BC.
Okay.
So, and then if you go to the next one, you'll see one that's called an os fornatum, and it's in the shape of a shell. And this is around 4th century BC. So you start to see a little bit more design going on. They were really did a nice job with the os signatums, but those were imagine having a brick of gold, right? So they were really important pieces to them back then. These were used for spending,
right? So on the signatums, you could spend a lot of time doing them because there weren't going to be very many,
right? So if you go to the next one, that's the more common one that we'll see. That's the as. So all of these are part of the os grav umbrella, but at least starting with the shell, and then I guess you could consider the Osrude and things like that part of that as well. But this is kind of where it starts out, where you really get more coin-like looking types. And the most popular one was this one, which shows the Janus head on the obverse of the coin and a prow of a ship. So that's the prow of a ship on the reverse. And just above the prow, you see an eye, and that's the symbol for the denomination, the as. So, and you'll, Janus head's kind of, was kind of an underworld god, and also was showing the past and the future. And the Romans at the time were showing, or the Italians were showing that they had conquered the sea. So that's why they were kind of using the prow of the ship on the reverse of the coin. And these are readily available in the market here in the United States. They come up, and this is the typical design. You will get some very interesting designs that are really rare, but I couldn't give you every single one in this presentation, but you'll see how they change over time. So I'm just going to go through the denominations. If you go to the next one, you have the semis. And so this would have an S on it somewhere. Maybe it. came off or whatever.
Underneath on the obverse.
Oh, yeah. Oh, thank you. I missed it.
You're welcome.
So there it is. I knew it was there.
I'm learning.
There you go. So you have probably a horse on the one side,
and a wagon
then you have
wheel
a
on the other.
wheel. You have a wheel on the other. So, and again, this is going down in denomination. So we're going from the largest to the smallest. So the next one, they use the 4 pellets for the trions. And again, you have, I don't know who that is, probably Apollo or Athena or somebody. And then you have a prow of a ship. Oh, I think it's Mercury, actually.
The little wings on top of the hat.
Yeah. And if you go to the next one, now you have 3 pellets for the quadrans. And you have a hand, and then you have 2 wheat.
Now, wait a minute. Hold on a second. I had to call timeout on this one because that doesn't make sense. You got 4 dots on the one that says tri and 3 dots on the one that says quad. That makes no sense.
It must be a, Latin thing or something like that. So I don't know.
Something.
I'm not so good with the.
I'm just saying. I'm just pointing it out.
The reasons, but all I can tell you is what they use, and I'm sure somebody much smarter than me could give the full answer. But in any case, this is what this one is. And what's really interesting is, so the hand, it's usually to ward off evil spirits. And at least from my experience in antiquity, the Greeks that were running a part of South Italy called Daunia actually have vases with hands on them to ward off evil spirits. And they actually have a hand on the side of the vase, which is kind of cool if you think about it. So I assume this is similar to that in that regard.
Yeah, they're like saying, stop
in the
Yeah, see, I was thinking that.
But I just went there. So
yeah, you did.
Now this is going to really throw you for a shebang, because go to the next one.
Yeah, and this
2
one's
pellets.
2
for sextons. So
yeah.
So you have a branch.
They got to learn their Latin. This is not working.
And you see this one took on a different shape. They have ones that are round, but this one has a different shape. And there's all different ones with different animals. There's one with a turtle. There's some cool ones out there. So it's a fun area to collect, because a lot of these smaller denominated ones are not very expensive. You can get them for some of them under $500, some of them under $300. So they are available. So it's not, I think the large ass, those things usually run with the Janus head, those usually run between $2,500 and $5,000 in general, depending on how nice it is. And then they go down in price, or they go up based on the rarity of the piece. So, and then if you go to the last one, we have Uncia, which now finally makes sense for the single pellet.
Sure.
So, and on the obverse, see that little square? That's actually called a knuckle bone. And that's actually used, it was actually used as a game. It's a gaming piece. And so they put it on antiquities, they put it on coins. It's really cool. In fact, I'll have to show you, Mike. I have at the office, I have a whole collection of knuckle bones in different materials: bronze, lead, bone, animal bone. And so, and some say that, there's some different ways of thinking about how the game was played, but the thought is that one of the ways was to throw them up in the air and see how many you could catch. So that's kind of like how jacks came from that. So
well, it's like you think about the link between coin and game pieces, because you've got jetons and things like that going forward. So it's always been a part of the history. Right.
So but yeah, knuckle bones on antiquities and coins is always really cool. So you'll see symbols of that occasionally. And then if you go to the next one, you have a sema-uncia, which is half of an uncia. And usually with the, you'll see common, they have smaller denominations with animals and other things on it, but the traditional one has the H and then the gamma on the reverse.
So H for Greece?
I don't know what the H stands for, actually. So not sure.
In Greek, it's Hellas. So.
And then if you go to the last one, now we get back to very late in the period where it's more getting Romans, and they go back to the ass. but this is actually a struck coin. So they went back away from cast and they go to striking. These are very common. Again, you go back to Janus head with the prow of the ship. It's probably about the size of $50, something like that, maybe a little bit bigger, but they're thick coins. And you can pick these up for $100, $200. They're not expensive.
And so these were mostly because the technology just didn't allow them to go smaller yet, right? As far as die
I don't know if it
making,
was so
things
much
like
that. I think they just, it's just they had to go through their own development and how they did these things,
Okay, fair enough.
So, and you had the rest of the Greek world and the Roman world, producing struck coins. And so I think that just over time, things just developed just in general. So, but it's interesting how if you go back all the way to that first coin, it's the large Osgrav ass. It's the same symbolism. So it's interesting how it kind of repeats itself. So
recurring themes. You'll find a lot of those in numismatics.
So anyway, it's a cool area to collect. If you're going for that typeset type of thing, buying a cast bronze coins from this period, at least one, it doesn't have to be the large one of the small ones. They're not expensive and it's a fun thing to have. So I would strongly suggest it for anybody who's interested. And you can get some really cool animal types or other interesting types. So they're a lot of fun and they are available in the market. So that's my education. And then just moving into the Pearl of Wisdom.
Yeah, I like this Pearl of Wisdom. I mean, I usually have a comment. I usually have a comment that I make about your Pearl of Wisdom, and this one I just left as is because I think it's perfect.
I was a little surprised by that, actually. I was a little surprised by that, actually. I was curious if you actually read it.
Oh, I did. I think it's important, but I also think it's perfect just the way it is.
So my Pearl of Wisdom is know what's in your collection. And I say that can have a lot of different meanings, but the reason I say it is because there's a lot of theft going around these days, and obviously when people pass away, they don't always have a good reporting of their collection and what's in it. And so with everybody having one of these, you can pretty much take pictures of your collection and store it on your phone or put it on the cloud somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of places to store it.
So if you're not taking pictures of your coins, I would start doing it. Because
once stuff is gone, it's almost impossible for you to prove what it was, what it looked like. And Aaron's right. It's like, this cell phone is a great invention in the fact that it captures its condition. It captures, all kinds of things about it that are really relevant when you're trying to make the claim or you're trying to just find them.
Right. And I don't know if you want to go to the, I have a link underneath the Pearl Wisdom.
Sure.
So if you bring that up, it's a friend of mine. Some of you have met him at shows. He's a collector. Brian O'Neill is his name, and he is a software developer. But he wanted to develop a place where people could house their coins. And so you basically, I forget how much it is, but you can do a 60-day trial, as you can see. But he actually developed software that when you take a picture with your cell phone or you take it from whatever website you bought it from, his software will drop out the background automatically and put it on this black background. So you don't have to cut out the photo at all. So he developed some really cool software for that. And you basically can store your collection on his website. And he's got some nice tools on organizing it. So if you want something for that next level, to put your collection somewhere where people, where you can get to them to show, people your collection if you want. It's obviously protected. Nobody else can see the coins except for you. And but there are a couple sites, but I like his. I think it's cool. And he's actually working on software as well that's going to work on pedigree. So you'll be able to submit a photo and hopefully see if we can get some hits from some old pedigrees going back to famous collections. So to see if it has an old pedigree. So
so that website is coincabinet.io.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So anyway, but the whole point of it is like, and the reason I thought about it is because, at the New York International, unfortunately, one of the dealers got ripped off. It was close to closing, and I believe the guard got distracted by the thieves, and they somehow got behind somebody's case because they had left for the day, and pried open one of the cases, and it had all of their purchases from not only the fun show, but the New York International, as well as all their show invoices. So what a nightmare trying to piece that back.
Disaster.
Yeah. So, and many of you have probably already heard about it because some of the lists of that dealer's coins have been posted all over the different websites. And Doug Davis, I know, sent his email out stating, what was stolen as well. And it's all over Facebook. And so, the nice thing about the numismatic community is we do all come together to try to help out someone who's been robbed.
And the overwhelming majority of people in this community are honest.
Yeah. And, you never know where these things are going to walk into a coin shop. And so you got to get the word out so that hopefully these coins do show up somewhere eventually and people know that they are stolen. So again, if you don't have photos of your coins, or a record of what you have, then, and having them as a list is not a good way to do it. You need photographs. No. You need photographs. So
telling
even if
me that you have
an
09S VDB in PCGS MS65 red still doesn't help.
Right. I mean, it's harder with the US. I mean, obviously you have the serial numbers on the slabs for those. And I suppose if you have your ancient slab, you have those serial numbers, but those can always be cracked out. Mm-hmm. So whatever. But the nice thing about ancient coins in comparison to US coins or even world coins is that ancient coins, every single one is completely different from the next. So you can pretty much almost guarantee that you can find a pedigree or find a stolen coin, even if it's one of 100,000 coins of the same type, because it'll have a blemish, it'll have something that's gonna look
just
a
crack someplace, just one thing that makes it a little different. It's like the ballistics on a bullet.
Correct. And that's why they can start to look up pedigrees with using this AI software, because what they do, the way I was explained to me, is basically every light, every shadow has a number designation. And so when they scan the coin, they get those same number designations, and then it looks for hits that are close to those number sequences. And then it'll say, does it look like this one? Does it look like this one? And then the AI learns over time.
Sure. So the AI is not really looking at the image. The AI is looking at the ones and zeros, the bits, and it's looking for patterns in the bits. So it's looking mathematically at them, which is completely different and something that the humans can't do. Correct. And if you scan thousands and thousands of auction catalogs, and the AI can basically process that in a matter of seconds, that's going to be. And we may learn a lot from that process, because we may learn about a lot of commonalities between, certain coins and certain things that define.
Sure. But I think it's a lot easier to do that with ancients than US.
Yes, I would agree with that.
So, but, pedigree isn't as important with US coins. In fact, it's funny because when I tell the guys at my company, like, oh, you should really publish that pedigree, they're like, why? No one cares.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's
totally
true.
Different rationale, you know?
Yeah, if it didn't belong to one of the top 5 collectors of all time, nobody cares.
Nobody cares.
Oh.
Right. So, unless it's like somebody from like the 19th century or early 20th century, I think it's worth mentioning those guys, like a Max Mal is cool. That's worth mentioning.
Sure.
But with ancient coins, excuse me, it's obviously becoming more and more and more important to have pedigree. And so to be able to piece these things together, I had somebody just ask me recently, they're like, oh, is this a hoard coin? And I said, I don't know what you mean. All coins are hoard coins. And so you mean, was it from a
we've been
hoard?
hoarding it all over town.
Right.
Yeah, no.
And I said, he just didn't know. And I was explaining to him that basically, look, if you're buying $100 coin, chances of it ending up in a auction catalog where it costs real money to publish these things is not very likely. It might be in an e-sale, where it doesn't cost much money to produce it, but it's not going to end up in a paper catalog. And so when collectors buy these things, sometimes they lose their invoices. They don't keep them. 30 years goes by.
Now
It wasn't that important 25 years ago. And so finding pedigrees, when I get a collection that somebody actually has clear notes on every single coin they bought, and the date and the lot number and all that stuff, and who they bought it from, I'm so stoked because I finally have pedigree on common stuff.
That's valuable information.
Very valuable. But a lot of times you go in and it's just like a box of coins and they rehand wrote, the coin, and they didn't say where they got it or anything because they thought nobody would care.
Right. And you were mentioning pedigree and the difference modern versus ancient. The modern pedigree is about who owned it. Who owned it? Whose collection did this belong to? Whereas ancient pedigrees is, can I own this? Right.
Or can I donate this?
Right.
More or less.
Can somebody own it?
So in any case, photograph your coins, guys.
Yes.
And even if it's a group shot, so you
and check out our friend at coincabinet.io.
Yeah. And there's other sites out there. I don't know them all. You guys can make comments in the in the comment fields about other software about. But there are definitely places where you can house your images in a private, secure way.
Yeah, it doesn't even have to be exposed. I mean, there are lots of drop boxes and things. I mean, there's millions of places that you can put it out.
Google gives you space on on their cloud, free space.
Yes.
So up to a certain level. So
and a fair amount of space is really not that expensive from them.
No, and JPEGs don't take up a lot of space.
No.
So it's not like my images for our company where we have these massive PDFs or PSD files that are meant for print photography.
Yeah, well, they were taken with DSLRs and stuff, so it's way different.
Yeah, I mean, I have to have a special type of cloud for that. So, but and that's why all the videos, I keep those on Vimeo because why should I use my own storage? I use their storage. It's cheaper, So piggyback off other people's storage, guys. So anyway, that's our show,
free
Mike.
pearl. Yeah, and so I mean, hey, we brought them their money's worth again.
I tried. I was exhausted, Mike. I didn't know if I was going to make this one, but I
glad you
powered through.
Yeah, you did.
I powered through.
If you've been checking out the shorts that Aaron posts every day, yes, he's it's funny and the sleeping Aaron I thought was my favorite so far. Yeah. Now we gotta have you come in the window or something.
Well, I know. I was going to talk to the window washer and see if I can get outside.
See what we can do.
I don't know about being 13 floors up on one of those things, though. That's a bit scary.
Oh, yeah, that's a little scary. So,
Yeah.
So thank you to our staff, that help us put this together. Thank you to our researchers, and thank you, Aaron, for all the great information that you give us. And thank you to everybody who listened, because without you, this just doesn't make any sense. So go ahead. You sounded like you had something to say.
And thank you, Mike, for all you do.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'm just here.
Without you, I couldn't have this show.
I'm just here to absorb the knowledge. So, and it looks like some of it through osmosis might even be sinking in. So we're getting there. I want to know how the people out there are doing. I want you to comment. How long have you been watching this show, and how many episodes, and how much more than me do you know? Because it's got to be a lot.
I've had some really good feedback at coin shows, and I'm always surprised at some of the people who listen to the show, and I'm humbled by it. So I appreciate all you when you come up and say something nice.
Yes.
And so thank you for that.
Yes. No, thank you. We really do appreciate it.
We do.
Yeah. So for the Ancient Coin Podcast, so long, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Take care.
Thanks for listening to the Ancient Coin Podcast with Aaron Berk. We'll return with another episode soon. Meantime, you can join our private group on Facebook. Just go to facebook.com and search the Groups tab for Ancient Coin Podcast Discussion Group and ask to join. There you can become part of our community, where we share and discuss ancient coins, as well as the show, the ancient coin market, auctions, or just to give our own opinions on things in order to learn together. Join Aaron and Mike again soon for the next episode of the Ancient Coin Podcast with Aaron Berk.